In a quiet village nestled between sun-kissed hills and dusty roads lived a young girl named Anea. She was known not for her wealth, because she had none, but for the warmth of her smile and the kindness that poured from her like spring water. Her family barely made ends meet. Her father, a struggling farmer, and her mother, often ill, depended on Anea to help with the chores, care for her siblings, and sell handmade scarves in the nearby town. Life was hard, but Anea never let it harden her heart. One day her father sat her down with tears in his eyes and told her she had to marry, not out of love but necessity. The family could no longer afford to feed everyone, and a man named Ammon had offered to take her as his wife. He was quiet, poor, and lived alone on the edge of the village in a crumbling cottage. Everyone whispered about him. He's strange, they said, probably cursed. But Anea saw something else, a stillness in his eyes, a depth that words couldn't reach. Kindness reveals true wealth. It is one of the most underrated yet most powerful forces in the world. In a society that often measures success in currency, possessions, or prestige, kindness operates on a completely different level, quietly, consistently, and without expectation of return. It's not loud, and it's rarely recognized with awards or attention, but it holds a deeper richness that money can't touch. When a person chooses kindness, especially when they have nothing to gain, it speaks volumes about their inner world. It shows the strength of character, empathy, and the ability to see humanity in others. These qualities cannot be bought or taught. They are nurtured through life, often in the quiet moments of struggle, reflection, and choice. In places where resources are scarce, like a remote village or among those who have known hardship, acts of kindness often shine the brightest, not because they are dramatic, but because they are real. They come from a place of sincerity, not strategy. Consider someone who offers their only meal to someone hungrier than themselves. They may not have a single dollar to their name, but in that moment they are wealthier than the richest person who passes by suffering without pause. This is the kind of wealth that builds trust, respect, and connection, foundations of any strong community or relationship. Kindness doesn't require an audience. In fact, it often happens when no one is watching. And yet, its impact multiplies, it echoes, it influences others to act from the same space of generosity and grace. True wealth lies in what you give, not in what you hold. When you are kind to someone, especially when they are at their lowest, you remind them of their worth. You give them hope that is more valuable than any financial gift. Emotional generosity, listening, helping, sharing warmth, is wealth that cannot be stolen, taxed, or lost in a market crash. It's infinite in supply, but rare in practice. People remember how you made them feel more than anything you ever said or owned. If you've ever been helped during a hard time by someone who expected nothing in return, you know how deeply that moment stays with you. The memory of someone showing up for you, being gentle when they could have judged, being patient when they could have ignored you, that lives forever, that becomes a part of you, and eventually you may find yourself passing that same kindness forward. That's how true wealth is circulated, quietly, person to person, moment to moment. Kindness can also expose the values of others. When you give without expectation, it becomes clear who is motivated by heart and who is motivated by self-interest. In relationships, friendships, and even in leadership, people who act with consistent kindness earn a level of trust that no title or salary can buy. In fact, some of the most powerful people in history were remembered not for their achievements, but for their compassion. Kindness outlasts accolades, it outlives possessions, it carves a legacy in people's hearts. Even in romantic relationships, kindness is the true currency. A person may be impressed by status at first, but what keeps a connection alive is how we treat each other in small, daily moments. Choosing to be gentle when frustrated, choosing to listen when it's easier to dismiss, choosing to support even when no one's watching. These are the acts that define love. They are also the acts that define inner wealth. Kindness also brings peace to the giver. When you act from a place of care, it brings clarity and grounding. You are not swayed by insecurity or comparison because you know what you offer has value. You're not performing to be seen. You're giving because you understand the power of presence, of empathy, of making someone feel less alone. Love can bloom in the most unlikely places. It often begins not in grand gestures or perfect conditions, but in the quiet spaces where struggle, simplicity, or even silence dwell. The world tends to romanticize love as something found in candlelit dinners or exotic getaways, but real love, deep, transformative love, often starts in overlooked corners. It might emerge in a shared glance between two people living through hardship, or in the daily rhythm of caring for one another with no audience and no applause. Sometimes love takes root where no one expects it to grow. In places where there is no wealth, no luxury, and no worldly success, two people might find something far more precious: understanding. They may not speak the same language fluently or come from similar backgrounds, but in their honesty and vulnerability, something unspoken connects them. It is in these moments that love proves it does not require perfection. It requires presence. In many parts of the world, arranged or practical relationships are common. Two people are brought together not by fireworks or fairy tales, but by family, survival, or community. Yet, within these unions, love often blossoms quietly, steadily, not because it was expected, but because over time, kindness, loyalty, and shared burdens build a bridge. They learn each other's fears. They protect each other's wounds. They show up day after day, and in doing so, they plant seeds of trust. Eventually, what began as an obligation becomes a bond deeper than passion, one rooted in respect and resilience. Love also surprises us when we are least prepared for it. Sometimes it finds us when we feel unworthy, broken, or exhausted. It appears in the form of someone who sees past our defenses. They don't look at who we appear to be. They notice the quiet details, the way our voice softens when we talk about something we care about, or how we keep going even when we're tired. They care without needing to fix us. They simply accept us. In that acceptance, we find healing, even in difficult environments, prisons, hospitals, refugee camps, war zones. Love finds a way. There are countless stories of people who met during dark chapters of their lives and still managed to discover a reason to hope. Love in these places doesn't wear makeup or designer clothes. It often shows up as a shared blanket, a whispered prayer, a warm meal, or a hand held in silence. It proves that love is not about luxury, it's about humanity. Unlikely, love also teaches us humility. When someone cares for us in our lowest state, it changes the way we see love forever. We begin to value the essence of connection over the performance. We stop chasing the image of love and start seeking its truth. This shift can dismantle our pride and rebuild us with gratitude. When you love someone not for what they can offer, but for who they are when no one else is watching, you begin to understand the real purpose of love. It is not possession or control. It is companionship, grace, and growth. There is something undeniably powerful about love that survives tough beginnings. Relationships that emerge from struggle are often stronger because they were tested early. They had to endure judgment, lack, distance, or fear, and still they chose each other. That kind of love isn't flashy, but it is unshakable. It teaches you that love isn't about finding the perfect person. It's about choosing someone and building something sacred out of the ordinary. Love that begins in unlikely places often carries the deepest sense of appreciation. When you have nothing but each other, you learn to cherish everything. You see value in a smile, comfort in a touch, and meaning in the simplest conversations. These relationships remind us that love doesn't require a perfect setting. It needs open hearts, willing hands, and the courage to stay. Judging by appearances hides deeper truths. It's a reflex many people have, shaped by the fast-paced world where quick impressions dominate decisions. We often assess someone's worth, intelligence, or potential based on how they look, what they wear, or where they come from. It's easy to fall into this trap, easier still to believe we're right. But the reality is, every person carries a story that can't be seen from the outside. Behind every face is a life filled with experiences, pain, resilience, and hidden depth that no surface detail could ever reveal. When we judge based on appearances, we limit our ability to understand. A man in tattered clothes might be a genius who gave up wealth to serve others. A woman quietly sweeping the floor might have once been a top student who gave up her education to care for her family. A child who seems shy might be battling battles at home that require more strength than most adults will ever know. The truth is, people wear invisible burdens, carry silent dreams, and possess strengths that can't be captured in a glance. Appearances are shaped by countless factors: economic status, cultural norms, personal trauma, or even the simplicity of choice. Some people choose modesty, others don't have access to more, but none of that tells the full story of their character. Someone might appear unimportant or unremarkable, only to later reveal a heart full of compassion or a mind filled with brilliance. And yet, many never get the chance to show this because they've already been dismissed. First impressions can be deeply misleading. We might avoid someone who looks too rough, too quiet, too different, when in fact they could be the very person who brings joy, wisdom, or help into our lives. It takes effort to go beyond what we see. It takes courage to listen before we assume, to learn before we judge. But when we do, we often discover people who surprise us, challenge our assumptions, and expand our understanding of the human experience. History is filled with stories of individuals who were underestimated or ignored based on how they looked. Many of the most influential figures were doubted, mocked, or disregarded early in their lives. Their clothes weren't impressive, their homes weren't grand, their beginnings were humble, but over time their actions, their kindness, their intellect, and their courage rewrote how the world saw them. If the world had only ever judged them by their outward image, their greatness might never have emerged. In everyday life, this lesson applies just as strongly. The person sitting quietly at the back of the room might have the most profound ideas. The neighbor who never says much could be the one who shows up when you need help the most, and the person you overlook might be the one who changes your life forever. What matters isn't the packaging, it's the presence, the soul, the choices people make when no one's watching. The danger of judging by appearances isn't just that we misunderstand others, it's that we rob ourselves of connection. We miss out on relationships, friendships, partnerships, and lessons simply because we weren't willing to look deeper. We risk surrounding ourselves only with people who look the part, instead of those who play the part with integrity, love, and quiet strength. Kindness, wisdom, loyalty, and generosity don't always come with polished shoes or fluent speech. They don't wear labels or flaunt titles. They live in the everyday actions of people who are often invisible to a world focused on image. To see them, we must slow down. We must choose to be curious instead of critical, open instead of dismissive. Because behind even the most ordinary face might lie an extraordinary soul.